The workers wake up before sunrise. The factories run all day. The farms produce food. The trucks keep moving. Year after year, people work just as hard, sometimes even harder than workers in the richest countries on earth. Yet, somehow, the country never seems to get rich. It's one of the biggest mysteries in economics. If hard work creates wealth, then why do some nations remain poor generation after generation? Why can two countries with equally hardworking people end up living in completely different realities? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, what if poverty isn't just about effort? What if it's about the system people are working inside? In the late 1950s, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. Its economy had been devastated by war. Average income was lower than in many African countries. Meanwhile, countries like Argentina were considered relatively wealthy. Venezuela enjoyed oil money. Ghana had enormous optimism after independence. If someone had to guess which country would become an economic giant 50 years later, South Korea would have been near the bottom of the list. Yet today, South Korea builds smartphones, ships, semiconductors, cars, and global entertainment. Its economy is more than 30 times larger than it was a few decades ago. Meanwhile, many countries blessed with natural resources and hardworking populations still struggle with poverty. So what changed? Not the willingness to work, the rules of the game. Because economic success is rarely just about effort. It's about where that effort flows. Imagine two farmers. Both wake up at 5 in the morning. Both work 12 hours under the same hot sun. One harvests crops and sells them through efficient roads, stable markets, reliable banks, and fair legal systems. The other faces broken infrastructure, corrupt officials, unstable prices, unreliable electricity, and weak property rights. By sunset, both are exhausted. Only one becomes wealthier. Hard work created value in both places, but only one economy allowed that value to grow. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about national wealth. Countries don't become rich simply because people work harder. They become rich because their systems multiply productivity. Think about a software engineer in California. 1 hour of work might generate hundreds of dollars of value. Now imagine someone mining minerals by hand using basic tools. They may work longer, sweat more, take greater risks, yet produce far less economic value per hour. Economists call this productivity. It's one of the strongest predictors of long-term prosperity. The richest countries aren't usually those where people work the longest hours. They're often the countries where each hour produces the most value. Machines, technology, education, infrastructure, capital. These quietly amplify human effort. Without them, hard work alone has limits. Then there's the invisible ingredient almost nobody notices: trust. Imagine starting a business. Would you invest millions if you believed tomorrow the government might seize your property? Would banks lend money if contracts couldn't be enforced? Would foreign companies build factories if political instability threatened every investment? Probably not. That's why institutions matter so much. Strong courts, clear laws, stable governments, predictable regulations. These aren't exciting headlines, but they quietly determine where trillions of dollars flow every year. Money doesn't simply chase cheap labor. It chases confidence. History offers countless examples. Botswana transformed diamond wealth into schools, roads, and stable institutions. The Democratic Republic of Congo possesses extraordinary mineral resources, including cobalt and copper that power modern electronics. Yet decades of conflict, corruption, and instability have prevented much of that natural wealth from translating into widespread prosperity. The difference wasn't the ground beneath them. It was the institutions above it. Resources can make countries rich, or they can finance conflict. Economists sometimes call this the resource curse. Ironically, countries with fewer natural resources often invest more heavily in education, manufacturing, and innovation because they have little else to rely on. Necessity becomes an advantage. Abundance sometimes becomes a trap. Global trade adds another layer. Not all exports are equal. Selling raw coffee beans generates only a fraction of the value earned from selling branded coffee products. Mining lithium earns far less than manufacturing electric vehicle batteries. Extracting crude oil creates less long-term employment than designing advanced industrial equipment. Many developing economies remain stuck, exporting raw materials while importing expensive finished goods. They're selling ingredients. Someone else sells the finished meal. Most of the profit stays with whoever controls manufacturing, technology, branding, and intellectual property. That's where much of modern wealth is created. Debt can deepen the challenge. Governments often borrow to build roads, hospitals, schools, and power plants. When managed wisely, debt can accelerate growth. But when borrowing becomes excessive or money is wasted through corruption, the burden grows heavier. Interest payments consume government budgets. Investment slows. Future generations inherit yesterday's bills. Some countries spend billions every year, simply servicing debt instead of building productive industries. The harder they work, the faster they're running on a treadmill. Education also tells an incomplete story. Many countries have talented engineers, doctors, scientists, and entrepreneurs. But talent doesn't always stay. When opportunities disappear, people leave. This is known as brain drain. A nation invests years educating its brightest minds. Then those minds create value somewhere else. The loss isn't just personal, it's economic. Innovation follows opportunity, and opportunity often follows stable institutions. Of course, none of this means wealthy countries did everything perfectly. History is filled with colonialism, unequal trade relationships, financial crises, wars, and geopolitical advantages that shape today's global economy. Luck has always played a role. Geography matters. Timing matters. Natural disasters matter. No country's story is simple, but over long periods, one pattern appears again and again. Prosperity isn't created by hard work alone. It's created when hard work meets productive systems, when effort meets capital, when innovation meets investment, when trust meets opportunity. That's when economies begin compounding. Much like interest in a bank account, small advantages accumulate over decades until the gap between nations becomes enormous. Today, billions of people wake up every morning determined to improve their lives. They work long hours, build businesses, grow crops, drive trucks, teach students, repair machines. Their effort is real. Their ambition is real. But if the surrounding system destroys productivity faster than people can create it, hard work alone cannot close the gap. That's why the question was never whether poor countries work hard enough. Many already do. The more difficult question is whether the economic environment rewards that work or quietly traps it. Because history suggests something surprising. The greatest wealth of a nation isn't buried underground. It isn't printed by central banks. It isn't measured only by GDP. It exists in the invisible systems that allow millions of ordinary people to turn effort into lasting prosperity. And that leaves one final question. If the biggest obstacle to national wealth isn't a lack of effort, but the rules of the system itself, who has the power to change those rules? And perhaps more importantly, who benefits if they never do?